My buy low is Michael Thomas. I think he got like 10 or something. I actually don't know.
Yeah, he had 5 for 50.
I saw his snap count and straight away I put him in here. He only had 55% of the snaps. So last year he was the wide receiver 1 by an absolute mile. And he saw 89% of snaps for the season.
You have to go Kamara first. Just because he's the safest one. Like, he's going to score 25 points, even against good run defenses. Like, Cook will score 40 some weeks, but when he plays like the Bears this week, he might struggle. So I'll go Kamara first, Cook second, McCaffrey third, because McCaffrey...
It's a miracle! Oh, yeah! What about that one? Unbelievable! Balotelli, Aguero! Crowd cheers. Here's Siddle. Oh, the ball is close! He's given him! He's given him! Peter Siddle's got a hat-trick on his birthday!
Welcome back to the On the Ball podcast. This is episode 85 of the show. Once again, joined by Christian Pilcher. How are we, mate?
Thanks, mate. Very well, mate.
Yeah, excited for this one. Another fantasy episode this week. We are previewing week 10. We've changed a little bit of the structure, but pretty similar to what we've done in the past. So we've got the buy, low, sell, high section making a return, the streamers section, and then we've also got a rapid fire start, sit, and like who we think's better going forward section at the end. So stay tuned for all three. It should be a good one. If you haven't already, feel free to get around the potty, follow us on all the socials, stay posted for future eps because we do this every week. And if you haven't, feel free to go check out yesterday's In Real Life Week 9 NFL review. But to start us off, mate, let's get straight into it. Buy low, sell high, starting with the quarterbacks.
Yep.
Who are you looking at here?
Buy low, I'm going to go with Big Ben Roethlisberger. I think he's been flying under the radar a little bit, and he's got some real good weapons, and he hasn't really been lighting the world on fire, so I think you could get him for quite cheap at the moment. And I'd say he's a quarterback 1 rest of season.
Yeah, he's pretty reliable. Like, I don't think he'll ever have a week where he goes like 30, but he's not going to have many weeks if he doesn't get injured where he goes like sub 18 or something.
He's just always going to have 300 yards and a couple touchdowns.
Yeah, exactly. Very reliable recipe there. So if you just want to set and forget quarterback, he's probably your man.
I was considering sending Cork Matt Ryan for Big Ben, but I don't think he'll have a bar of it. So I'll probably just not send that one.
He's to those listening, we have a few inactives who don't cop any trades, and he's one of them. Well, he actually plays, but he just doesn't cop trading. I like Big Ben. Do you think he's comfortably a quarterback 1, or do you think he's on the verge of it?
I think there's about 8 blokes who are comfortably in there, and then there's probably like 6 others who are kind of in the same tier to make up the remaining 4 spots. And I'd say Big Ben's in there with like Tannehill, Burrow, Ryan, those sort of blokes.
Yeah, so in a 12-man with a 1 QB, you'd still back him in though to be a QB starter. Yeah, so definitely a buy low option there. My buy low is Lamar Jackson, the man I traded to you. He's only had 3 20-plus scores this year. It's been well documented that his passing game's not been on, and in fantasy terms, he's just not been as dominant, but scored 18.6 against the Colts, but that did include a rushing TD. However, he's only scored 3 rushing touchdowns this year, and you'd expect him to almost match that number in the back half of the year, if not like double it. He's had 18 rush attempts in the red zone all season, and the next most for the Ravens is only 11. So if there's a rushing touchdown for the Ravens, it's actually most likely it's going to be him based on those stats. He did throw at 82.6% against the Colts defense, so a very good one. So you can look at that 2 ways. You can think, well, that's unsustainable, or you can also see that as maybe the passing game's starting to improve. He's not going to hold that completion rate, but it might, jump from mid-50s to mid-60s or whatever it is at the moment. He's also coming off his last 3 fixtures have been the Eagles, Steelers, and the Colts. All 3 very good defenses. Now he's got the Patriots and the Titans, who are a lot weaker on that side of the ball. And then looking to fantasy playoffs, it's that time of year. There's only 4 weeks left. So if you're looking like you're going to make the fantasy playoffs, you've got to start factoring in that as well. He's got the Browns, Jags, Giants, Bengals. Yeah, so
totally for that.
Especially, well, even against the Browns, you'd imagine the Ravens will be scoring 25 plus against all 4 of those teams. Giants are a good defense, but their offense probably won't be able to stay on the park for long enough. So, yeah, you'd think Ravens will be scoring a lot of points, and therefore Lamar, whether it be running or throwing, has got to get involved. So for me, Lamar's definitely a buy low. He probably has been all year, realistically. So, but yeah, I like that. I like him as a buy low option. So might get him back this week, mate. Maybe. Do you have another buy low, or you got to sell high?
We'll go sell high, QB. Yeah, I've got one per posse for each. Yep. So I'm pretty sure this bloke might have been my one last week as well, but Cam Newton again. Played against the Jets, was pretty average through the air. I mean, he had a high completion rate, but it was all like small passes to Jacoby Myers. Didn't score any touchdowns, but he still somehow pumped out a 23 because he ran in for 2 touchdowns. But I mean, this was against the Jets and he looks very average. So I think you can still sell him decently high, considering he's got some name value being Cam Newton and he just had a big score. So I'd be looking to ship him off because I still think there's no way he's a QB1 for the future.
He's my main sell high as well. He always, like we say, the rushing TDs carry him, but he basically does score one every week. But
yeah, that is
the
true.
thing is, the week he doesn't score a rushing touchdown, he's
going to be ugly.
You're going to cop a 10. And at this time of the year in fantasy, you can't really be having that. And this is ridiculous. He's only thrown 2 touchdowns all season.
Really?
That's actually absurd. Like,
that's disgraceful.
That's a joke. But yeah, their offense, it looked a little bit better on the weekend on Monday Night Football, but it was against the Jets. But yeah, he threw an uncharacteristically high 77.1%. And then they've got the Ravens this week, and in round 1 of the playoffs, he has the Rams and the Dolphins, who are arguably 2 of the most informed defenses right now. So, definitely a sell high Cam Newton for me, especially in QB1, like 1 quarterback leagues. But yeah, I don't think Cam Newton's a QB1 going forward. My other sell high is Josh Allen. This is a debatable one because I had him in the buy low last week, if you remember. But he scored 36 against an awful Seahawks defense, threw a ridiculously high 81.6 completion rate, which is completely unsustainable. And the other aspect of his game, he had 4 touchdowns, three in the air, 1 rushing, which is also unsustainable. He's not going to be getting 4 every week. The Cardinals is their next opponent, and then they've got the bye. And then in the fantasy playoffs, they have the Steelers, Broncos, Patriots, and Dolphins. So apart from the Patriots, those other 3 aren't ideal matchups. And given the fact that he just went huge, it's skyrocketed his average. And although he had a pretty bad month before this week, I think people might forget about that. They'll just look at last week's efforts. And I reckon if you get good value for him, I think he would be overvalued right now by his owner. So, by other people around the league. Sorry, not his owner. So I reckon you could cash him in. But that's probably a debatable one. Do you think that's a fair point, or would you just set and forget Josh Allen at this point of the year?
Well, I mean, you can set and forget him, but you could probably sell him for a lot right now coming off that week. I've got a question. Who would you rather going forward out of Josh Allen and Lamar?
Oh, that's rough because the Bills' offense looked really good on the weekend, and the Ravens haven't really looked good on offense at all this year. But I think I'd have to just go Lamar. I think his fixture's a lot better, and just the rushing yards is Allen loves a rush, but it's more just in the red zone. So I'd probably just go Lamar, but it's actually pretty tight, I have to say.
Yeah,
I assume you would go Lamar as well, or
just because I have him, I probably wouldn't do it straight up. I'd just keep the bloke who I actually have. But I reckon it's a bit of a coin flip situation there.
Yeah, it's interesting because obviously Lamar's my buy low, so if you could look at Allen for Lamar, so it's actually an interesting 1v1 there. But yeah, I'd probably just take Lamar, but based off this year, it's kind of hard to argue that point. But I just like Lamar's floor with his rushing yards.
Yep.
And you've got to assume the Ravens passing game at some point is going to click. So I'd probably hedge my bets there and back him in. But yeah, I could see why someone would go Josh Allen there. So it's a tough one.
Yep.
All right. Oh, I was going to say this in the last episode, but I forgot. But yeah, if you feel free to comment anything. Like last week, we had a few guys comment their start and sit dilemmas, which we enjoyed answering, and we actually got it right, which partially right, but which I was impressed with. So yeah, feel free to comment a start and sit or a trade suggestion, even if you don't take our answer like rigidly. Just if you want an opinion. We love getting around that stuff. All right, running backs, buy low. Who have you got here?
Yep. So I was originally going to go with Austin Eckler here, but I'm not actually sure if you can still buy him low because it's kind of pointing that he's going to be back most likely next week, if not the week after. So
the only thing about Eckler is there's been no news on ESPN. So if someone if someone doesn't do like a deep dive, you might be able to get them. But yeah, that's
so I'd kind of suss out what you can get him for. But I mean,
not T Higgins.
Not T Higgins. I was offered T Higgins for Eckler. No, it was an instant reject. But I'm going to go with Antonio Gibson actually.
That's interesting.
Decent rest of season schedule, and he's still got a really good role. First 2 downs, he'll get you minimum 16 rushing attempts each week, a couple of catches, and he's kind of similar to what Myles Gaskin was a bit at Miami, probably in a slightly worse offense, but like he's going to give you some good volume, and he hasn't really been lighting the world on fire in terms of scores lately. So I think you can get him pretty cheap. And he's definitely a top 20 running back going forward.
Yeah, and on the weekend he had a fumble, which saw his snap count go down, but they always go straight back up the next week. So, I definitely rate that shout. JD McKissick is a bit of a worry, but I was looking at their snap counts, and I'm pretty sure they play a lot of the snaps together because McKissick's was like 86, and
McKissick's
was like 46. So I think they play them together, and McKissick just gets the catches and Gibson runs it down the guts. But yeah, their running game's actually pretty good as well. So they usually have a decent yards per carry, and Gibson would most likely get the red zone attempts. I know Peyton Barber does sometimes, but he's kind of been phased out of the last few weeks. But yeah, I like that shout. James Conner is my buy low. Had an absolutely awful one against Dallas. I think what did he score, like 4 or something? It was
how weird was that?
Yeah,
against Dallas.
This is a bit worrying. I don't know how much to read into this, but his last 2 snap counts are 58% and 46%. When he's at his peak, he only averages about 65%. So probably don't overreact to that, but that is probably something you do need to monitor because we saw last year, as soon as he didn't start playing well, they went straight to a committee. Jalen Samuels got more touches and stuff like that. Benny Snell. But I think it's mainly down to game script for those two. Against the Ravens, they were trailing. And then against the Cowboys, they were trailing pretty much the whole way. So they needed to throw heavy. And although he does get a little bit involved in the pass game, I think they do have Big Ben has more preferred options at the running back position when they need to throw it, or they just go no running back. So I don't think you need to worry about that in the next 3 weeks. They've got the Bengals, Jags, so you don't have to worry about game script there, and they're also horrible defenses against the run. And then they've also got the Ravens coming up, who they're actually statistically not very good against the run, which people probably might not know, but they're not that good. So probably you don't have to worry about him there. And then in the playoffs, he has the Bills and the Bengals in the first week of the playoffs. So solid matchups there. But yeah, for me, he's an RB1 in the next 3 weeks and probably those 2 weeks in the first round of playoffs. So I think if you can get him cheap, this week after his horrible performance. I'm sure there's a few fantasy coaches out there who are blaming their loss on Connor. I think you could get him. So he's definitely a buy low for me.
Good shout.
Sell high. Who are you backing in here?
Yeah, Todd Gurley. He might have been my sell high last week as well, but he just keeps getting a junk time touchdown just to get his score up to like 10 or 11 points. You know, he has his 15 carries for 30 yards every week, but as soon as he doesn't score a touchdown, he's scoring genuinely 5 points tops. And you can't be relying on him to score a touchdown every single week. And I think there'd be people out there that just look at his scores and his average and would want him on their team. So if you could sell him for Antonio Gibson, probably can't, but that would be an absolute steal.
Yeah, or even, like, this is ambitious, but Eckler, like...
Oh, yeah, definitely.
If you could do something like that, or even maybe Gaskin. I don't know how highly you rate Gaskin, but yeah, I'd definitely back that. And just, I don't know their fixture, but just based on the division, they must play the Bucks and Saints, who are both very good run defenses. Yeah, actually, they play one of them twice.
They have Tampa twice in the playoffs.
Yeah, that's right. I remember seeing that yesterday. And he's also lost a few snaps recently to Brian Hill.
Yep.
His snap count went down heaps. I know, mainly against the Panthers. Well, not too sure against the Broncos on the weekend, but yeah, I agree with that. And also, game script won't suit against the Saints and Bucks. So, well, most likely. We never know with the Falcons. So I rate that one. Got rid of him a few weeks back. So yeah, definitely get rid of him now, I reckon. Also, similar to Cam Newton, he has a bit of the name factor.
Yeah, exactly.
For me, my sell high, I've got a bit of a cop out here, but it's an obvious one. But he actually has like 75% ownership, which kind of shocked me. But Jerick McKinnon, he's had back-to-back weeks of double digits thanks to rushing touchdowns. And he's active in the passing game, which is good. Even when most and stuff were playing, he would get around 3 to 4 catches a game. But upcoming schedule of the Saints, then the bye, then the Rams. Saints and Rams are like 2 of the top 5 run defenses, and then the bye is obviously a donut. And then Mostert, Tevin Coleman, and Jeff Wilson all nearing return in the next 2 weeks. So, yeah, if I'm a Jerick McKinnon owner, I think he might be a stream option this week. I've seen a few that floating around, but I think Tevin Coleman is playing that week, so I'd be a little bit worried about that. And also the 49ers, at this point, I just don't want to go near any of their running backs, except for Mostert. They just change it up every single week. Hasty's let down a lot of people as a streamer in the last 2 weeks. But yeah, for me, McKinnon, definitely jump off that ship if you're still on it, because you could probably still get value for him with this coming up week. He does have value, so I reckon you could get something decent for him. So yeah, I'd get rid of him. But then I've got an interesting one, similar to the Josh Allen. It's debatable if he should be here, but it's actually your man, James Robinson. This is just because purely it's nothing statistical about his performances, but he's had a ridiculously easy schedule in the last 6 weeks. 4 of his last 5 opponents have been bottom 4 rush defenses, so that's in yards per attempt. Also, on the weekend, they did have the Jake Luton guy at quarterback, not Minshew, which might have hurt him. But
he didn't have a single catch with
Luton. He saw his fewest targets since round 1. He only had 2, and every other match he's had like 4 or 5. So, his fixture moving forward isn't that bad, but it is a step up from what he's had in previous weeks. So, yeah. Also, if you're very confident in your team and you're looking at fantasy finals, so like the second week of the playoffs, the second round of the playoffs, he's got the Bears and the Colts, who are 2 of the best run defenses. So it's a debatable one because he's a good player, high volume, so you can kind of count on him. But yeah, I think he could be overvalued right now. So I'd look at getting rid of him and testing the waters and seeing what you could get for him maybe. Do you think that's fair, or are you keeping him?
No, it's fair. I was just looking at his schedule just there, and actually after this week it gets pretty nasty. He has that, as you said, the Bears and Indy. I'll probably keep him for now though. I'm not going to sell him this week because I think he has a big game against Green Bay, and then you could probably sell him next week if he scores like 20. But yeah. You could definitely get a lot for him though.
Yeah, 100%. All right, we're wide receivers. Who's your buy low here?
Buy low. I'm going with Allen Robinson, Chicago. He's as consistent as they come, and he's kind of just been pumping out, in between 12 and 16 points. So he's kind of going under the radar a bit, and I'd still prefer him over guys like AJ Brown. I have AJ Brown, Robbie Anderson, people like that. So if you can get him for someone like that, I definitely would. I think he's probably a borderline top 10 wide receiver.
Yeah, very secure. Exactly what you want from a wide receiver.
He's kind of like Keenan Allen, just with the worst quarterback. So he's a bit restrained because of that, but he's still a beast.
Yeah, 100%. A-Rob's been elite ever since the start of last year, pretty much. And, well, he's been pretty good before that as well. My buy low is Michael Thomas. I think he got 10 or something. I actually don't know.
Yeah, he had 5 for 50.
I saw his snap count, and straight away I put him in here. He only had 55% of the snaps. So last year he was the wide receiver 1 by an absolute mile, and he saw 89% of snaps for the season. So if you can, I don't know what you'd have to give up for him, but he'd 100% be undervalued right now unless the owner is a Michael Thomas fan. So I reckon if you can, even if it's just a straight swap for a top 5 wide receiver for him, I don't know, Julio for Thomas or something like that, I think it'd be worth it because I can't see his snap count staying below 80% for much longer. And their offense actually, if it's going to play like it did on the weekend, they could have more scoring potential than last year, which is good for Thomas. But yeah, main thing for Thomas is the receptions, and you'd expect to see them back up to his lofty heights next week.
Yeah.
So that's my buy low. Sell high. Who are you going here? I found this one hard, the sell high wide receiver.
Yeah, I've gone with Adam Thielen, and he's been producing some very poor scores, but 95% of the people still view him as Adam Thielen, just beast wide receiver. And I still think you could sell him for quite a decent player. I'd probably have him kind of around that back end top 20, maybe top 25 at the moment. So, I reckon you could definitely get someone better for him.
Yeah, last week I did my rankings. There's a few players who weren't in it because they're locked away in inactive teams for us. But yeah, he was outside the top 15, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Just his main thing was targets. That's been his main thing for the last 3 or 4 years, and they've seemed to disappear. I do think the game script is they've got a few tougher matches, including this week against the Bears, which should see them throw the ball more because you don't think Dalvin Cook's going to be able to get 200 yards, whatever, every single week.
Yeah.
But wouldn't count that out. So I would be trying to sell up on Thielen and Jefferson as well, actually. I don't really rate what they offer to your sides. So I'm an owner of Jefferson. I actually might be trading for Thielen, which is quite dodgy, but it's more just to get Travis Fulgham. But yeah, I rate Travis Fulgham above Terry McLaurin. I know that's seriously debatable, mate. But I probably shouldn't be admitting that on the podcast because it might affect my trading this week. But wide receiver, sell high. Mine's actually, as I said, this was really tough, but mine's Will Fuller. He's been awesome this year. He scored double digits every single match except for one. But I just hate how low his targets are. And he scored a touchdown in his last 6 matches, I think. In his last 2, I think he's had targets of 5 and 4, which is just not what you really want. And then from week 13 to 15, they play the Colts, Bears, Colts. And that's the last round of the regular season and the first round of playoffs. And I just think he'd be slightly overvalued right now because the week he doesn't score a touchdown, he's going to get 6. So he has a high yards per reception, and he's probably going to score a touchdown more often than not. But I'm just a bit worried about him. And also Brandon Cooks has been outperforming him in terms of targets and red zone targets as well in the last 3 weeks. So I'm a bit worried about Fuller. But yeah, like he's not. You don't have to panic if you've got him, but I just reckon he could be a little bit overvalued right now. So if you could get something good for him, I think it's worth considering. But yeah, do you think that's fair, or do you honestly back him in to just keep scoring a touchdown a game?
Yeah, I will. Obviously, it depends what you can get. I think you could get something quite good, but he's definitely an elite receiver. Like I'd have him higher than Adam Thielen, for instance, going forward. But he's not I don't think he's a wide receiver 1.
Do you reckon no one would cop Fuller for Robinson, would he? Would they?
Allen Robinson.
Yeah. Fuller,
People might.
Fuller's like the 14 wide receiver 14. So like you could get some serious stuff for him.
Yeah. Yeah. If you can get Robinson for Fuller, I definitely would.
Yeah, 100%. Or even like I don't think you'd be able to get him, but like a Terry McLaurin, if you could manage that. Terry's volume is definitely spicier than Fuller's. All right, tight ends, the irrelevant position, the position we love. Well, we actually did some tight end dealing. For those listening, we did in a mega trade. We had Gronk for Waller, swap sides. So I've now actually got a set and forget. Well, Gronk is kind of set and forget, I guess. But who's your buy low here?
My buy low is Dallas Goedert. 100% buy low. I'm actually the most inactive bloke in our entire league owns Dallas Goedert, and I've just been hammering him DMs today, just saying, what have I got to give up for Dallas Goedert? Because I really want him on my team. I rate him.
Wait, who owns him?
Quinn.
This is irrelevant to those.
Quinn.
So doesn't he own Goddard, Engram, and
Fant?
Yeah.
This is why I need to get a tight end off him.
This is what we're dealing with, people. DM us on Instagram or in the comments if you want to join our league next year, because this is what we're putting up with, guys.
Yeah. So yeah, I sent him Jonathan Taylor, Ayuk, and Cousins for Dallas Goedert, which should be an absolute steal for him, considering he already has Noah Fant and Engram. But anyway, he probably won't see it. But yeah, he's definitely a buy low. He's averaging like 8, but he's going to be. Ertz isn't playing. Wentz loves to target his tight ends. I could see him being a potential top 5 tight end going forward because now he's fully fit and healthy as well.
Yeah, definitely an interesting prospect. And yeah, coming off that return game, I think his value will be a lot lower than it should be. So I like him as well. I think this was my buy low last week. So if you're in the buy low twice, you're arguably not a buy low because you shouldn't be talked about here again. But Mark Andrews is once again my buy low. He's seen in the last 2 matches, he's seen 6 and 5 targets respectively, and he's only caught 3 of them in each. So that catch rate should lift. Usually it's a lot higher on his end. And as I said before with Lamar, I'm expecting the Ravens passing game to start improving before the NFL playoffs. And I was looking at their red zone targets. He's received 11 red zone targets. The next best is only 4. So if they're going to start throwing more passing touchdowns, it's most likely going to be him seeing them. And although I keep crapping on about don't be someone who's TD reliant, he does see 6 to 5 to 4 to 7 targets a game. So he's got a higher floor than say a Jonnu Smith. So I think Andrews has a lot of upside. So yeah, who are you going with on your sell high?
Sell high, Jared Cook. I think he might have been my sell high last week too. But if you still have Jared Cook, get rid of him. So try and get Dallas Goedert for Jared Cook. That would be.
No one.
They might. I mean, Cook. He scored 3 on the weekend, but he's still been kind of fluking a touchdown every week, getting 13.
Oh, by the way, as we're talking about tight ends, the absolute king of this show, got to shout out Albert Okwebenham, who did his ACL on the weekend. So love you, Albert. We'll see you next year, brother.
Sad times.
Well, he actually might not be back next year, but you still got a spot in my heart, son. But yeah, carry on.
Wishing him a swift recovery. Yeah, so just Jared Cook. Just get rid of him for literally anyone. Anyone.
He was my tight end 3 coming into the year.
Yeah, he was my tight end 5 or 6. But that's the thing. Everyone was high on him.
Because back end of last year, he balled.
Yeah. People still kind of, like, if you look at where he was drafted in your league, it's probably still quite high. So people might still be clinging on to that a bit.
Their offense is going to improve, so he might score more TDs. But yeah, I just hate how little he's involved.
But he's going to be copping like 2 targets.
now they've got
Thomas is back.
And also they've got other good tight ends as well. Josh Hill has caught a few TDs of late, and Troutman caught one on the weekend. So I'm off him.
Jared Cook is cooked. He's done. So
Cookson is gone. All right, my sell high is the guy you actually wanted to get off the waivers. I'll be honest, I don't get why people froth this dude. Johnny Smith. He had another double-digit score on the weekend thanks to a TD, but he's seen 2 targets in 3 of his last 4 matches. And so it's genuinely basically, if he gets a touchdown, he scores 10. If he doesn't, he scores 2. So he's likely to score a touchdown in most games because the Titans are a pretty good offense and he's their main aerial threat in the red zone. But when he doesn't score a touchdown, he's gone only above 5 points once. It's happened 4 times this year and he's only gone above 5 once. So he's genuinely borderline losing your matchup if he doesn't score a touchdown. So, and then coming up, they've got the Colts, Ravens, Colts. So I'm not a fan of Jonnu. Jonnu's average is quite high, I think. So you could maybe try Jonnu for Dallas Goedert. I don't know. I don't know if anyone would cop that, but there's a lot of wild and wacky people out there. But yeah, moving on to anything else you want to talk about there, or do you want to move on to the streamers?
No, mate, let's just move on from tight ends.
I froth streamers, but I'd never stream anyone myself. To those who don't know what a streamer is, I feel like I should have explained this last week. It's someone who that say, I don't know, you've got a buy in your running back slot and you need someone, or you don't like one of your running backs matchups, so you want to bring in someone who's got a low ownership percentage, who's got a favorable fixture, who has a high chance of scoring high just for 1 week, and then you ship them off next week. So that's what a streamer is, and our criteria is below 60% ownership on ESPN. So thought I'd just explain that quickly. But quarterback streamers, mate, always an interesting position to stream the quarterback slot. Who are you rocking with here?
Tua
Tagovailoa. Ownership's like 29% or something still.
Couldn't believe that when I saw it. And
I think half the game's given up. Oh, who are the Dolphins playing? You carry on, I'll check.
But yeah, Tua looked amazing and it's someone easy. It's a decent fixture, I'm pretty sure. But balled out. Chargers, there you go. They've been pretty suspect against the pass recently. Balled out last week. Herbert v. Tua. That'll be spicy.
That's the first time any of them have played each other, I think. I didn't think Herbert played Burrow.
Oh, no, they did. Oh, no,
really?
Tyrod Taylor played Burrow.
Oh, yeah, that was
round one.
First round, wasn't it? Yeah, that's good memory.
Anyway, Tua's my streamer. I think he'll have a big game, and he's rostered on 29% of leagues, so go pick him up.
Yeah, 100% agree. He's sitting on my bench at the moment, just hoping he sprouts and I can sell him off and improve my starting XI. I might even do that this week, to be honest.
I'll take Tua off your hands, mate.
I won't even explain what XI is because we've got a lot of American viewers, but my streamers, it's a tough one. Tua is probably the best option, but I was looking mainly at just beast fixtures.
Danny Dimes.
Jared Goff is my number one. He's only in 46% of rosters, up against Seattle, who Josh Allen just scored 36 against. I know there's a big discrepancy between Allen and Goff, but Seattle have conceded the 4th most points in the competition since September. And if Seattle take the lead early, you'll expect the Rams to just throw everything like they did against Miami. I think he had 51 attempts or something like that against Miami. He just threw the house down, and he hasn't gone below 10 points all year. So although you don't really care about their floor, like the minimum score they're probably going to get if you're streaming someone, but that is also good to know. He's not gonna whip out a 4. He's probably like his lowest would probably be like a 12 or a 14, but his upside's huge. He has 320 plus scores as well on the season, and 2 rushing TDs. So all potentials this weekend. Big chance to get above 20 here for Goffney. And yeah, I like him as a streamer. My other guy is Drew Lock as well. Coming off the back of 2 decent fantasy scores, 19 and 29 against the Raiders. So you'd imagine the game script will probably suit them again. You'd think the Raiders will take a lead in that one early. And the Raiders have the 7th worst pass defense. Good thing about Locke, he has 2 rushing touchdowns in the last 3 weeks. And last week he threw it 52% and almost got 30 points. So you can't imagine it staying at 52% for too long, although he does have a seriously low career completion rate. But yeah, Drew Lock's probably a lot riskier, but yeah, Goff's probably my main shout there, to be honest. But yeah, 2 is a good one as well.
Yeah, Goff will go big this week, and so will Cup and Woods.
Yeah, running back I found really hard this week because none of the main options had good fixtures. So I found it tough. But who are you going here?
There is one bloke. David Johnson is 90% going to be out with a concussion this week. So Duke Johnson is in. They're playing the Browns, who are decent against the run, but the Texans head coach has said that Duke Johnson's going to take the big role, the heavy workload. So he'll be pretty safe for 10 points, and he might get into the end zone for you. So chuck him in your lineup if you need a running back.
Yeah, David Johnson was borderline in my buy low actually because he scored 1.6. But yeah,
I think it's
agree with that. Yeah, we don't know too many injuries yet. There's a lot of the running backs have come back in the last fortnight. But yeah, keep an eye out for the injuries. Same in Seattle. If Carson and Hyde don't play, well then Homer or Dallas are both options. And yeah, just keep an ear out for those guys.
And Davis is owned in like 70% of leagues, so we didn't include him. But if he's on your waiver wire, snag him.
Yeah, if McCaffrey doesn't get up,
definitely
get Mike Davis in. My running back streamer, I picked him up this week in the waivers. He's not an inspiring choice at all, but Aaron Jones is back, but I've gone with Jamal Williams. If you look at his stats before Jones's injury, he was actually still doing pretty decent. He had a game where he scored like 20, I think, because he's really involved in the passing game. In that match I was talking about, he had 8 targets. So he had 5 red zone attempts in his last 3 matches when Aaron Jones has played. That's rushing attempts. So although Jones scores most of the rushing touchdowns, Jamal Williams does get his cracks at it. And in this one, you expect them against the Jags to get up early and run the house down. If they're up by 20 points by halftime, who knows? They could sit Jones and Jamal could come in and take the mick, especially in the last quarter. The Jaguars have conceded the most points in the competition since September. So I think all the Packers players are pretty interesting streaming options this week for those that aren't owned in a lot of leagues. So Jamal Williams, it's a low floor option because he just might only, get 3 catches, no rushing carries, but most usually he gets around 10 touches when Jones doesn't play. So, and I'd be banking on Jones getting sat by like 3/4 time.
Yeah,
so,
there's a high chance that occurs, to be fair.
I don't think 3/4 time is a saying in NFL, but I've just brought it in there. Any other running backs you want to mention?
No, just Duke Johnson for me.
Yeah. Spicy option. Before we get into the wide receivers, I'll just ask you again, please get around the potty. Feel free to subscribe and like and all that good stuff. And feel free to comment your start and sit dilemmas or any trade negotiations. We had a couple last week and really enjoyed it. So get around that. All right, wide receiver streaming. Who are you going with here?
Yeah, so this is if you're, as normal, pretty desperate for a receiver, if you've got a couple buys or injuries. But Curtis Samuel, he's owned in less than 60% of leagues, and he's been kind of balling out recently. They're giving him like all these trick play carries and like all these weird plays, but he's producing quite well. So, yeah, I think he's projected like 13 points on ESPN Fantasy, which is always promising. So, yeah, I'd stream him if you need someone.
Yeah, I was going to pick him up this week, actually. He was at about 4 guys in contention for the waivers, but I went with someone else. Can't remember who I went with. But yeah, definitely a decent option. I think he's had 2 rushing touchdowns in the last 2 games or something like that. So he is definitely a spicy pick. They do have the Bucks though, but he's not really a running back, so it's not like yards per carry is going to affect him, and he's more in there for touchdown potential. So I rate that pick up. My main streamer is Tim Patrick of the Denver Broncos. He has had 7+ targets in 3 of his last 4. They're up against the Raiders, who are pretty bad against the pass, as I said, for Drew Lock. Lock's completion rate makes him a tough option because even if he gets 8 targets, he's probably only going to get 4 catches. But the amount of targets he sees, especially also in the red zone, he's had 6 red zone targets, and actually 5 of those 6 have been completed. So they seem to dial it in the red zone. So for me, Tim Patrick's a decent option against the Raiders. Same probably goes for all the Denver wideouts. They're all pretty spicy, even KJ Hamler. And then a risky one. This is one to keep an eye out. Alan Lazard. He's most likely going to play this week. He's still on IR, but it's most likely going to play. He almost played last week. And as I said before with Jamal Williams, they've got the Jags. And Lazard is someone I'm very interested in, not even just as a streamer, but as a genuine pickup for the bench. My only worry is he might have lower snaps because it's his first game back, but easily the best wide receiver in terms of genuine ability out of the wide receivers below 60% rostered. And yeah, saw 4 red zone targets out of the first 3 matches, and they're up against the Jags, so you'd think there's going to be a lot of touchdowns to go around. So I think Alan Lazard is a lot riskier, but also interesting pickup. And you could probably argue if Lazard's not back, then MVS, Marquez, Valdez-Scantling becomes a streaming option too.
Yep.
Tight ends, who are you going with here?
Dallas Goedert again. He's actually only owned in like 46% of leagues, which is how weird is that? But he's owned in our league, unfortunately.
It's got to be because he's a myth. It's got to be because no one knows who he is.
And people would have dropped him when he went on IR.
Yeah.
And just
the IR symbol is a kiss of death.
Yeah. But if he's available in your league, get him ASAP. And but they're playing New York Giants this week. I mean, they concede a decent amount of points to tight ends. They mainly lock down receivers. So I could see him having a big game, to be honest. He was the easy choice for me.
Yeah, very fair. I went with some more rogue options. Robert Tonyan, he doesn't see too many targets, but as I keep saying about the Green Bay Packers up against the Jags, and Tonyan, as we saw in that week where he caught 3 touchdowns, he's a ever-present touchdown threat. And then apart from him, Logan Thomas is an interesting option against the average Lions defense. In his last 2 games, I think he's had over 12 points, and he's had 7 targets in the red zone this season, and he's had 3 10+ scores, so solid chance he goes big. And Gerald Everett is also someone I'm interested in against Seattle. I think he had 9 targets this past week, so
really,
he could be a streaming option. He's kind of overtaken Higbee in the Rams offense. All right, moving on to the start and sit / who's better for the rest of the season conversation. I think we start with yours first. So you'll be answering the rest of season who's better, and I'll be starting the week 10 start and sits. So first of all, you don't have to. We say it's rapid fire, but you can take 30 seconds or something, or you can explain your thinking because it'll be quite boring content if we just go name. All right, strange one to start with, but who do you back out of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers running backs? Do you think Rojo or Fournette is the better option going forward?
I'm probably going to go with Fournette, to be honest. I just think Rojo has the highest snap counts, but Fournette has the high value touches, red zone and the passing work. We play in a PPR league, so catches are very important for running backs. So I'd probably lean on Fournette there.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I'd be going Fournette but we didn't really get to see much of them last week, so it's kind of hard to see what the dynamic is there.
Yeah.
Next one, I just had Goddard and Hawkinson, but as we were talking about tight ends, I decided to add Quinn's other two tight ends.
Okay.
Noah Fant and Engram. So rank Goddard, Hawkinson, Fant, Engram.
All right.
Rate those four.
Okay, I'm going to go Hawkinson top.
Okay.
Fant second. Goddard third. Engram fourth. But to be honest, they're all like same tier. Maybe Fant and Hawkinson probably a slightly better tier than the other two. But I'd go that order.
Yeah, all right, interesting. They're all that, just below the elite tier. Very good tight ends. So now talking about the premium running backs, who do you like out of Kamara, Cook, and McCaffrey?
Yeah,
this is very tough.
I knew this one was coming. Okay. You have to go Kamara first, just because he's the safest one. Like, he's going to score 25 points, even against good run defenses. Like, Cook will score 40 some weeks, but when he plays like the Bears this week, he might struggle. So I'll go Kamara first, Cook second, McCaffrey third, because McCaffrey's out this week and he still has his bye coming up. So.
That's actually, if we're not factoring in injury this week, I would say McCaffrey's my number one. But that's probably good. That's probably a good.
You can make an argument for any order in that, to be honest.
Yeah, I like your thinking there. All right, battle of the backup running back. So these are the guys who kind of came to fantasy relevance in the last 6 weeks, but now they're pretty irrelevant. But rest of season, who do you like out of Jamal Williams, Jordan Wilkins, Giovanni Bernard, and Mike Davis? So this is, I guess you can factor in that McCaffrey's out this week, but this one's tough because
this one is tough. It's out of Jamal Williams and Davis, just because Davis stands to gain the most if McCaffrey gets hurt, but you can't really bank on that. So I'd probably go with Jamal Williams. Yeah.
Do you think Bernard has any relevance now that Mixon's back? Or do you think he's going back to his original role?
Definitely. No relevance.
All right. Who do you like out of the Rams receivers, Cup or Woods?
Yeah, good one. I'm going Woods. Very close, though. All season, they've just been averaging the exact same points per game, but I've always just had Woods slightly above him.
Yeah. By the way, speaking of Rams receivers, Josh Reynolds is also a kind of an interesting wide receiver stream this week. He's seen bulk targets recently. My former wide receivers, Julio Jones or DK Metcalf.
This one it's
kind of the battle of volume versus yards per reception. Well, actually, DK has been.
You traded Julio to me last week, and I actually rated him above DK, but I've kind of switched around on that, and I'm going DK now.
All right. Very interesting.
Both top 5 receivers, though.
Yeah, very, very good players. And then finally, a bit of a quarterback conundrum I've found myself in this week. Well, I haven't really put much thought to it, but Wentz, Tua, and then I've added onto the back of this Big Ben. Rank those
rest of the season.
Forward. Yeah.
Yeah, Big Ben first, easily. Ooh. Tua, it kind of depends. Tua has more upside than Wentz, I feel like. But Wentz is kind of safer. So if you've already got a quarterback who's better than them two, and it's your backup quarterback, I'd go Tua. If not, I'd go Wentz.
All right, interesting. Okay, that's all I've got for you, mate. So,
all right, we'll move on to the start sits. I've got 5 here.
Oh, I'm scared, mate. I'm scared.
So first up, we got a couple running backs. Do you still have Darrell Henderson on your team?
I do.
So I got Henderson versus Seattle or Jonathan Taylor versus Tennessee.
He's gone the first. Are you trying to trade negotiate here, mate?
Nah, I'm not. I'm not trying to trade negotiate.
All right, Titans
strictly this week only.
The Titans' defense is actually underrated. I was doing some statistics, and the yards per attempt they've allowed is 3.6. Since September. So I think the first few games they got destroyed. And then the Seahawks, they're decent as well. That's tough. I'd probably just go Jonathan Taylor just because Henderson's coming back from injury and we're not too sure what his snap count's going to look like. But
Yeah.
Henderson's riskier, but he has way higher upside in my opinion. But yeah, I'd probably go Taylor just. Oh, that's rough because Taylor's like what Taylor's probably going to score is probably not even worth like picking him. Like you may as well take the risk on Hendo.
Yeah,
but yeah, it probably depends who you're playing, what kind of situation you're in. If you just want, if the rest of your team's good and you just want someone who's going to give you like around 8 to 12, I'd probably just go Taylor. If you're looking for someone to win you the game, and maybe put up a 15 or a 20, well, then Henderson's probably a bet because he is due for some rushing touchdowns, given his numbers. What do you got next, mate?
Yep, good call there. Next up, we've got the Lions playing the Washington football team. So DeAndre Swift or Antonio Gibson?
Oh, that is tough. The football team are a better defense than the Lions, but I'd probably have to go Swifty.
Really?
Game script, I reckon.
True.
Game script, I reckon, and I think Swift. He played pretty well last week, I think. I can't remember his stat line, but I think his yards per carry was decent. And yeah, Gibson, as you said, is definitely a good option as a buy low this moving forward. But yeah, I don't know. I'm backing in Swift. Very close, though. Very close.
Yeah. I reckon Swift has more upside. Swift more upside, I reckon.
Yeah, it's probably similar to the first one, actually.
Yeah.
Swift probably could score lower, but definitely a higher upside.
All right. Now, my third one is impossible. You got to pick one out of these three.
Mate, this better not make me lose sleep, mate.
It might. We'll go. We'll go. You've got all three on your team, and you've got to sit one. So you've got to start two. All right.
Okay.
And it's Juju, Deontay Johnson, Claypool.
I was actually just looking at this before. Juju's recent numbers have been very good.
Yeah.
Well, this is interesting because I don't like
Hang
Claypool.
on, they're playing Cincinnati.
Yeah, they're all playing the same team, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
It could because they're different.
I'd go Deontay and Claypool because Juju gets more volume, but low yards per reception, very low, and he is less of a TD target than the other two. So I'd be going Claypool and Johnson, but Claypool's the risk. Can you even say he's riskier than Johnson anymore, given Johnson's last
injuries?
always
Johnson's a 50% chance to
I'd
pull a
say
hammy.
Juju, the difference between Juju's floor and ceiling is the smallest out of the three. So if you want a safe option, maybe go Juju, but I think the other two's ceiling is way higher than Juju's personally. But all pretty good options this week, to be fair, against a Bengals team that concedes a lot of points. What would you say there?
Yeah, I'd probably... Yeah, as you said, it depends. All right, Claypool's the most boom-bust out of the three, I'd say.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, now we've got another wide receiver one. We got Texans v. Browns, Cooks v. Landry.
Texans v. Browns. Texans v. Browns. Texans are a lot worse defense than the Browns.
Yeah. Although Browns' secondary is pretty... Their pass defense, is pretty average.
True. It is true. I do have Cooks as well. I'd probably go Cooks, though.
Fair call.
I think he's a bit more reliable. Mate, all yours are the exact same. There's one that's more reliable, but one has higher upside. Like Landry could ball out if the Browns, put up 30-plus points. He's probably likely to catch, but I think Cooks, you could probably pencil him in for somewhere between 5 and 8 targets. So he's probably going to get 10 plus just on receptions alone. And he's he's one of Deshaun's favorite TD targets. So I'd probably just go Cooks as well. But in saying that, Cooks might be departing my team this week. So
we're still kind of waiting for Landry to take advantage of Odell Beckham doing his ACL.
This week could be the week.
Could be the week. All right, last one, mate. This is more premium receivers here. We got Tyler Boyd against Pittsburgh or Godwin against Carolina.
Rough, mate. That's rough. That is brutal. I think
you probably want to start both these guys if you have them both. But
yeah, I think I've got to go Godwin just because the matchup's better.
Yeah.
Because
Steelers is pretty rough.
Steelers they're only averaging 20.6 points against. So although Boyd is he's one of Joe Burrow's favorite red zone targets. Yeah, I don't know about them scoring too many points this week. But yeah, I'd probably back in Godwin, but probably similar once again.
Yeah.
Boyd probably arguably has a high ceiling. So, but yeah, no, I'll be locking in Godwin there, even with his busted finger, where he has to catch like that.
What? What's he done?
Because he has like a broken finger.
Yeah,
his finger's like completely cooked, so they have to strap it to the finger next to it. So when he catches it, it's like that. It's like impossible to catch. They were showing it on Sunday Night Footy. But yeah, that's it. That was a good last segment, I reckon. I think that becomes a permanent fixture. Did you like it? Live feedback?
Rated that highly.
Yeah. So once again, feel free to comment or DM us on Instagram if you have any questions about the fantasy week this week, and we'll do our best to help you out. We did quite well last week, 2 from 2 strike rate, I'd say, between us. So yeah, once again, feel free to get around the potty on the social medias and also on whatever platform you're listening or watching on right now. And yeah, looking forward to this round of fantasy footy as always, and we'll be back same time, same place next week. So yeah, look out for the next week's episode, and thanks for joining us today, and thanks for coming on.